Daniel, this is an amazing article that you wrote yesterday. I feel so stupid, uninformed, that I didn't even know this was happening in my community. And I asked Stu this morning. He said, I never even heard of it. Sarah,
no idea.
Had you heard of it? No.
No, not at all.
It is incredible, and I want to get to the reason why we don't know it in a little while. But first, welcome to the program. Tell us the story.
You know, and it's great to be back, although it does seem like we're always discussing sudden death together. No, really, died suddenly. Well, to be fair, 18, 20-year-olds dying suddenly doesn't elicit any suspicion in our media body politic. So, I guess in some respect, you can't blame them for ignoring deaths of 90-year-olds. But I think, I started covering this before COVID, 2019. The murders occurred between 2016, 2018. But it really has gripped me a lot more post-COVID. After everything we saw about the treatment of seniors, particularly in senior care living facilities, the way they were treated first with the COVID-positive patients being brought back in and then just locked down, given no treatment, being experimented upon with endless boosters after they realized they were problematic. And, do we have a problem in this country where we have a big debate over the life of the unborn, but not so much about the life of seniors? And look, we're all going to become that one day.
So you took it to the ending, on why. And I think you're right. We don't know this story because it is an old person dying, and old people die all the time. And there is something in our society that is happening that is devaluing the lives of the elderly, especially those who are living alone. They're, in a not a nursing home, but a living facility, a retirement place. And that's where these things happen. But this case is so astounding because it was so clear in retrospect, and nobody did basic police work. So start at the beginning. How did this guy, who is he, and what did he do?
Sure. There are so many angles to Billy Chemirmir. First, obviously, there's the deportable alien angle as well. He was a Kenny national, overstayed his tourist visa in 2004.
No. 2004? No, we fixed that after 2001.
Yeah. The one thing we didn't do post 9/11, we clamped down on American liberties, but then foreign nationals coming in, overstaying their visas. But like many, he found a way to finagle status, got a green card, fine. But even with a green card, he was deportable before a single murder is alleged to have occurred. He had 2 DWIs, he had an assault. And then he was even sentenced to 70 days for trespassing the first facility after 3 of the murders that should have easily raised awareness, but somehow he was released. And so the first red flag is the whole immigration thing, that we have millions of ticking time bombs in this country, career criminals that are foreign nationals. We have enough of our own. Other countries' criminals we don't remove. The last I've seen, ICE has final removal orders, meaning they've gone through their court ruling and their appeals on 4.8 million individuals, mainly illegal, but some LPRs as well, who remain indefinitely in the country. And those are the ones that they target, which are particularly bad because that's what ICE generally targets. So all of this was avoidable just from an immigration law standpoint.
For the love of Pete, start at the beginning. Tell us what the man did.
Well, that was the pre-beginning. So now he went on to stalk at least 4 upscale senior care or senior living facilities in Dallas and Collin counties, and would either follow the victims into their room as they were slowly walking in, or knock on the door and pose as a maintenance worker. And this is after hundreds of hours of stalking the hallways and somehow not being detected. And then he would proceed to smother these elderly women with a pillow until they were deceased, and then steal the jewelry off their fingers, off their bodies, off their, their lock boxes.
Yeah. How did the people the first time, the lady is smothered, they come in and they don't notice her jewelry is missing. Did the families notice that the jewelry was missing?
So I actually spoke with the nephew of the first victim, Dr. Catherine Sinclair. By the way, these were not seniors like Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden. I mean, although they were elderly, they were very vibrant. They were constantly going in and out, which is how Chemirmir was able to stalk them. They were very, they liked dressing up, doing their hair. They wore a lot of jewelry, and it, gained his attention. So it was bizarre to the families that they died suddenly. It could happen. It does happen. But in the case of the first victim, okay, remember, this was not the perfect crime where he got sloppy later. In the first victim, within 2 days, the family notified police of the robbery. There was a mislocked safe that was 60 pounds. And the jewelry, they noticed, obviously, the jewelry taken. So that's a prima facie burglary homicide. It was called in and as both a homicide and robbery complaints, and they went nowhere with police. Meanwhile, he went to the second and third victims within a few doors in the same facility, and it elicited no investigation from police, from the facility management.
And their jewelry was missing. Their jewelry was missing.
Their jewelry was missing, and usually from their fingers.
Okay, so in other words, I don't even understand this assisted living facility. I mean, you would have 3 families now going, hey, who in your facility? My parent just died, and all of her jewelry is gone. Who in this facility? They didn't do anything. I guess they assumed that their staff was stealing this jewelry. What was that all about?
And in the meantime, Chemirmir was caught twice, in between the first and second murder at the first facility, and after the third, eventually sentenced to 70 days in prison, and then let out despite his priors as a foreign national. And again, it raised no concerns, no bulletins put out by the management, and it repeated itself over and over again. I even had 2 of the victims' daughters on my podcast, and I think you got a clip right there where they explain exactly what they saw right away.
Okay, here it is.
So when the UT Southwestern came to get her body, I said to my sister, make sure that her jewelry is off. And my sister said she doesn't have any on. And I said, she has to have a ring on because she can't get it off. I said, does she have the earrings on? She said, no. And I said, okay, that's weird. And that's when the communications director started saying, well, these women, they hide things. And he actually said, sometimes they hide them in their panty drawers. My brother was thinking, what in the world? Like, why would he say that? How does he know that? And next following days, we were like, he did it.
So they were saying that the people in the home, I would say that. I would absolutely think that. I'd think that much more than my mom was killed by by some burglar that was stalking her. It's a much more logical conclusion. So they didn't do anything. And when you say he was arrested after the third murder and robbery, he was arrested and put in for 70 days, but that was for trespassing, right? How was he getting into these facilities, and what was he doing, and how many times did they see him in there?
So, I mean, the security reported him a few times. They kicked him out one time, and then the second time he obviously was sentenced to 70 days, served 12 days, of course, because you never serve your sentence. And he went right back to doing it in that second facility. That was Ellen House, daughter of Norma French, who was killed in the second facility in Dallas County. This guy would troll the hallways for hours on end. It is simply astounding. And again, this wasn't the perfect murder. When I first covered it, I thought that this guy just staged the bodies well. But no, he spent most of his time in these apartments looking for the jewelry, not trying to cover up his murder. Sometimes you saw the glasses crushed halfway around the room, blood on the pillow. If you're a trained police officer, you would know that that's prima facie a homicide. I don't care if they're 115 years old. if the ring is missing and the family calls it in, there's something wrong. But this was able to go on for another 2 years and ironically only stopped because the final woman, the 23rd woman or 24th, had a pacemaker that kicked in and she wound up surviving and was able to identify him.
That is absolutely incredible. And yet he's not being, they're not asking for the death penalty. In Texas, they're not asking for the death penalty.
Nope, and it's not just John Crusoe, who's kind of a Soros prosecutor in Dallas County, but none of us paid attention, or we did a little bit 2 years ago when he said he's not seeking the death penalty because we figured, look, there's 9 cases to choose from in Collin County, so they'll certainly take care of it as a Republican county. But Greg Willis announced about 2 weeks ago that he's not seeking the death penalty either.
Why?
No public comment was given. What I have heard from the families are excuses that are not unique to this case, but would basically terminate the death penalty in totality. It will take too long. You'll be dead by then. It's too much money. We've heard from both counties he was a model prisoner.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Everyone on death row is a model prisoner afterwards. I mean, you had the famous Carla Faye Tucker drama under George W. Bush in Texas that she found Jesus, and they all say that. This is nothing new. It's usually more the gangbangers that commit crimes in prison. The serial murderers are kind of loners. They're not going to do anything. It's just something's very bizarre because when I look at stories and I find anomalies before, during, and after. So the fact that this was never caught, the fact that during the process the families weren't mollycoddled and treated like you would expect victims of something like this. They had to beg for indictments. They had to beg for changing of the medical examiner's determination of death. Reluctantly, they gave indictments, but only went to trial on 2 of them. And then now, no death penalty. The state doesn't seem to be interested, at least from what I've heard.
All right. Okay. Here's the thing. You know, David, I want to talk to, not David, I'm sorry, Daniel, I want to talk to you after the show, and we'll have Ricky or somebody reach out. This is ridiculous. This is Texas. If you've got a guy who we know killed 22 or 23 people, and he was doing it cold-blooded murder, and he was doing it just for the money. If you can't get a capital case on that guy, well, then the death penalty doesn't exist really in Texas for anybody. And I think because it is a conservative county, I think we should highlight these. I'd like to talk to the surviving families. I'd like to hear them. I mean, I assume they want the death penalty for this guy. And I would assume that there's a lot of people in Texas that live in these counties that will find this to be an outrage. And I think they're getting away with it because no one knows this story. You've done a great service, Daniel, in bringing this to America's attention. I mean, this is one that's going to go, in a gold star after life on this one.